How overpowered can you make pyromancy in Dark Souls 1? Now, make no mistake, this is still a pyromancy only challenge run. I just thought that because this run has been done a million times before, I would see how optimal I could make my damage at certain milestones in the game to see just how OP we can become. The rules of the challenge are: 1. We can only use pyromancy with one exception, and 2. No glitches or exploits such as soul duplication, even though, it would be super convenient to be able to do so. That's it for the rules, but let me explain how this challenge works. The run will technically begin after the Asylum Demon, only because of the little brother of the magic classes in Dark Souls, Miracles, doesn't start with an attacking spell. There'll be 4 phases in the run. The first phase is when there are no bosses barring the Asylum Demon having been killed. This is the setup phase. The second phase is the early game, which will encompass everything up to Sen's Fortress, not including optional bosses unless they progress my build in some way. The third phase, the mid-game, is everything before Manus and Calamite and 2 of the Lord's Souls, which means we can defeat Artorias and explore the Abyss, but we can't fight any of those super late game bosses. And the final phase, late game, is Manus, Calamite, and the rest of the Lord's Souls. In each phase, I need to acquire upgrades to my build that increase my power as early as possible. That doesn't mean I'm cut off from boss fights if they increase my power, just that I must get the closest to the strongest I can. Now, I'm going to be attempting to make the perfectly optimal build for these bosses, but if you do something differently, let me know in the comments section below. Oh, and before anyone mentions, yeah, I'm aware that the majority of the Dark Souls 1 bosses can be one-shot with pyromancy, but I'm not going to do that because the whole point of this run is to feel overpowered, and resetting hundreds of times to one-shot bosses doesn't sound like I'd be very overpowered. Besides, I'll leave that to the one-shot run that I have planned on my list. Now, without further ado, this is how overpowered can you make pyromancy in Dark Souls 1. And if you happen to enjoy this video, why not leave a like, comment and subscribe? I'd like to boost my numbers somehow, and having some subscribers would definitely help with that. The setup for the optimal pyromancer in Dark Souls 1 begins as every class does, in the Asylum. Now, because this game has a tutorial boss and level, the run doesn't truly start until we reach Firelink Shrine, which most of you will ascertain is due to Miracles being the runt of the litter when it comes to magic in Dark Souls, and doesn't start with an offensive spell. Though the Asylum in this run does have some explanation needed. As most of you know, the Pyromancy Glove is the only spell catalyst in the game that can be upgraded. The trade-off, however, is that it has both a lower magic adjust stat and has no direct scaling, except with dexterity, but I'll get to that in a minute. However, Pyromancy, as you likely know, is the most powerful of the magic types in this game. And raise your hands if you know where this is going. It's the buff spell, the only buff spell in the game that affects magic as far as I'm aware, Power Within. The most broken spell FromSoft has ever released, besides maybe something from Demon Souls. But I can't speak to that game because I haven't played it. This pyromancy boosts my damage by itself by 40%. For reference, the Dust Crown headgear and the Slumbering Dragoncrest ring each boosts my damage by 20% for a combined 40%. And these buffs can stack. Therefore, these 3 things combined is what makes pyromancy the most broken magic type in the game. But why don't I just show you that now that I've arrived in Firelink Shrine? Within Firelink Shrine, I spend some time running around and grabbing all the loose souls that I can fit into my undead pockets to cut down on some of the grinding that I need to do in this section before heading into the undead burg. There is currently only one thing I need from the burg, and that's the residence key. So I run to the undead merchant and obtain said key. I head down into the Valley of Drakes, into the Darkroot Basin, and up through the area and into the undead parish where Andre is. After that, it's a quick run through the church to grab the basement key and into the area below the bridge to activate the Dragon Bridge farm. It's not quite time for the farm yet, so it's down into the lower undead burg where I set some dogs on fire using the level design and free Griggs using the residence key I bought earlier. Then comes the grind. With all the souls I picked up, I start at about 12,000 of the 20,000 souls I need. And the Dragon Bridge grind is super simple. Run up onto the bridge and then back down the way you came. It's 555 free souls per run, so it should only take like 14 runs to get 20,000 souls. Once those 20k souls are obtained, I can head back to Firelink Shrine, where I purchase the Bellowing Dragon Crest Ring, which boosts sorcery and pyromancy damage by 20%. And ironically enough, that's most of the setup done. Now it's head back to the Valley of Drakes and into the back door of Blighttown, where I do make a small mistake, but it really makes no difference in the run, but it's still kind of annoying. See, when you kill a hollow enemy in Dark Souls, there's a small chance that they can drop soft humanity. So from the 20,000 souls I farmed, I have 2 soft humanity. So, taking advantage of that situation, I make myself human, which means Man-Eater Mildred can invade, and after getting her to throw herself off an elevator, I obtain almost 9,000 souls. I then need to ascend Blighttown to get the second to last spell that I could obtain without glitches, Power Within, and then I lose the 10,000 souls that I got from Man-Eater Mildred. And it's whatever, it doesn't make much of a difference in the end. And I grabbed the last piece of setup, the Poison Mist spell. And that is phase 1 complete. The setup phase is over. Now it's time for phase 2, the early game. Our first goal is to obtain both more spells and a more powerful pyromancy flame. And this can be obtained with 2 branching paths. The first is heading to the lower undead burg and fighting the Capra demon. This would unlock the depths and unlocks the pyromancy teacher Laurentius. On the other hand, I can stay in Blighttown and use the Man-Eater Mildred summon at the boss fight to defeat Quelaag, giving us access to the Chaos Servant Covenant for more spells and their Egg Servant who can upgrade my flame. Since I'm already in Blighttown, I go with that option. Unfortunately, there aren't any game-intended skips to get past Quelaag, so this is the only option because, as you might be able to tell from her design, Quelaag is completely immune to fire. I have to use Man-Eater Mildred to progress, and while it technically takes 3 tries because Mildred dies 3 times, at the very end, it's not a hard boss. Because Quelaag goes after enemies when they hit her, she just constantly goes after Mildred, so we can just stand there and wait. But Mildred has a tendency to get stuck in the lava, so if that happens, you need to walk up to Mildred and then walk to the side of the lava, which will generally move her out of the way. Now, I don't ring the first Bell of Awakening here, or I guess technically the second, because I'm unsure if that will cause Lautrec to murder the Firekeeper in Firelink Shrine. I checked on the wiki afterwards, and it won't. So if you're following this guide, feel free to ring the bell, but make sure to kill Lautrec before you kill the Bell Gargoyles. I complete the first objective of the early game by talking to the egg guy, who will allow me to join the Chaos Servant Covenant by speaking to the Fair Lady. This will unlock Great Chaos Fireball, and because I have a Pyromancy Flame, I can upgrade it with him as well. Now, I unfortunately can't fight the Ceaseless Discharge because he's completely immune to fire until much later, which is unfortunate because the outfit he guards would be perfect for this run, and the souls would also be useful. However, in order to unlock more spells, I can get affected by the eggheads just inside the Demon Ruins, which will cause the rest of the egg guy's shop to become open. But for 25,000 souls, Toxic Mist is going to have to wait for a long time. And by the time I leave Quelaag's domain, I have a +8 flame and 4 extra casts of Great Chaos Fireball. And it now comes to the grind. In order to make the grind easier, I head to the catacombs to fight Pinwheel. And if you happen to enjoy the video, why not hit the like button and subscribe to the channel? I think that helps me in the labyrinth that is the YouTube algorithm, but honestly, I'm not sure. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I died to Pinwheel. That's more embarrassing than having a nude posted online when you didn't mean to. I make it back down to Pinwheel and actually kill him this time, and then I head into the Tomb of the Giants without a single light source. I used to think the Tomb of the Giants was a difficult place to navigate without light, but once you get down to patches, if you just stick to the right hand side wall, it's not that hard to make it to wherever you need to go. And before the massive grind begins, I grab the covetous Silver Serpent Ring, which boosts soul gain by 20%. I do a quick grind for 20,000 more souls to buy the Crest of Artorias. Could I just murder Andre and take the crest from his cold dead hands? Yes, but I'm a pyromaniac, not a monster. And once it's obtained, I head into Darkroot, where I spend the next hour and 30 minutes grinding. The grind is pretty simple. Run into the forest and bait the first 4 hunters back to the entrance, stand in this corner and block with the shield. If all goes well, then they should run up the stairs and throw themselves into a death plane, netting about 10,000 souls per run. I need roughly 360,000 souls, which is a lie. If I wanted all the pyromancies from both my current teachers, I would need 400,000 souls. And this isn't an Elden Ring grind. I can't just fight 2 bosses and get that many souls in 30 seconds. It takes forever, and it's not particularly safe. I die a couple of different times. With 370,000 souls, I head back to Blighttown, where I upgrade the Pyromancy Flame to +15, which spawns the strongest teacher in the game, Quaylana, and she ascends my flame to +5, its maxed out state. From Quaylana, I buy almost all her spells besides the spell Firestorm, the most notable spells being Pyro Whip, Great Combustion, and Great Fireball. And I'll go over the spells I'll mostly be using for the rest of the run. Great Combustion is a melee pyromancy spell that deals damage directly in front of you. The Great Fireball is, as the name suggests, a big ball of fire that you throw to deal lots of damage, and the Pyro Whip is sort of the middle ground between the two. It has 2 hurt boxes, so besides Fire Surge and the Storm Pyromancies, it can dish out the most damage. The last piece of setup for the early game, I head into Darkroot Basin and easily kill the Hydra and the Golden Crystal Golem to spawn Dusk of Ulasil. And after summoning her, I head back to the alcove where I found the Golden Golem and grab her armor set, particularly the Crown of Dusk, which boosts all magic damage, miracles, sorcery, and, most crucially, pyromancy by 20%. We are now in the most overpowered state besides the red tier stone ring, which you can't really use with power within until the late game, so I'm skipping it for this run. Now that I'm as overpowered as possible, here are my current stats. The main things to note are the 23 attunement for 6 spell slots and the 21 dexterity. And let me explain, finally, while I'm leveling up dexterity. So, I did say at the start of the video that pyromancy scales with dexterity, and some of you are probably wondering why I said that, when it isn't true directly. Well, all magic in this game scales with it. Not direct damage, but with spellcasting speed. With 45 dexterity, you can attack with pyromancies between 20 and 27% faster. Now that I'm as overpowered as possible, it's time to start smashing through bosses like I smash energy drinks. Also, if you happen to be enjoying the video by this point, why not leave a comment, like and subscribe? It helps me out. The first boss on the list to be incinerated is the Taurus Demon, and while I generally don't like my beef well done, preferring a juicy medium rare, I think I can make an exception when I one-shot the Bull Demon with the Fire Whip. Next up to be incinerated is the Moonlight Butterfly, but before I do so, I grab the Wolf Ring, because the Anquetit set doesn't have any poise, because, you know, cloth doesn't do much to stop swords, the extra poise to power through attacks and cast spells is quite useful. Moonlight Butterfly probably takes the longest out of any boss in this phase, and that's only because I don't feel like trying to free aim the Great Fireball spell, so I spend a minute unsuccessfully dodging the magic until it finally lands and I incinerate this butterfly's wings. I clear through the undead parish and free Lautrec from his cell and send him down to Firelink Shrine. Then I run up to the gargoyles and using power within and the Fire Whip spell, I turn these bell gargoyles into the Gargoyles of Ash with 1 cast each. The lower undead berg is as annoying as always. It honestly feels more like a Dark Souls 2 level with the constant gank fights and dogs. Fuck all the dogs in From Software games. The Capra Demon, which is usually really annoying, isn't so bad here, but I do make a mistake. I should have used Great Chaos Fireball instead of Fire Whip, which would have caused the demon to take a bit of extra damage, and for the dog to turn into a pool of slag from the lava. But I use Fire Whip, which almost gets me killed. Nonetheless, I turn the Capra Demon into the Cremated Demon. I free Laurentius from the depths and send him to Firelink Shrine so I can buy his spells and then send him to his death later. Before the Gaping Dragon, I also make sure to clear out the Channeler, so I don't have to deal with his magic projectiles and buffing the boss. And also, lore-wise, why can he even do this? Like, doesn't Seath control these guys directly and he can see through their eyes? So like, why would he buff his kin, no matter how distant, when he stabbed them all in the back? It doesn't really matter. I wanted to try and hit the weak point on top of the Gaping Dragon's nubbly little head, but he was refusing to do the head slam. So I cut off his tail with a fireball and then whipped his hide into submission with Fire Whip. I then homeward bone out and buy all of Laurentius's pyromancy and send him on his way to Blighttown, which is where I'm going anyway. But not yet. I have some unfinished business in the Northern Undead Asylum. So I decide to cosplay as an egg for a while, and Velka is kind enough to carry me back to where it all began. The Stray Demon, the upgrade, version 2.0, whatever you want to call this guy, is one of the bosses in this game that I seemingly struggle with inexplicably. Sometimes I'll smash through him in one go, and others it takes me several attempts. In this case, he was relatively easy, probably thanks to the OP build I've constructed. The last thing I do in this phase of the challenge is buy the Firestorm spell. I'll grab Toxic Mist in a bit, but as it doesn't add to the strength of my build, I'm skipping it for now. And I then ring the second Bell of Awakening. The start of the third phase is now underway. My first stop is Sen's Fortress, and there isn't anything to note besides the Iron Golem fight, so here's that, I guess. Buffing with Power Within, I make sure to sprint to the left when entering the fog wall, which causes the Iron Golem's first wind blast to hit some rubble. Then I sprint up to the Golem and turn the Iron Golem into the Broken Golem. Before heading to Ornstein and Smo, I decide to make a detour from the main path and into a painting Super Mario style. After the painting sucks me into its world, I start exploring the area, and what should I find but 2 different pyromancies. The first being Acid Surge, which is literally useless in PvE, and I don't think it's ever been used in PvP. However, the second is a pyromancy that is actually pretty good, all things considered, and I might try it out on some bosses. It sprays fire from your hand like a flamethrower. It also allows you to move around a little so you can strafe around some attacks. The boss of the area is Half-Breed Priscilla. Isn't tough at all. Although it's kind of annoying because I can't knock her out of invisibility, as it appears I do no poise damage with Fire Whip and Great Fireball. Maybe if I used Great Combustion, I'd be able to break her invisibility, but she dies to the splash damage of my Great Balls before that could happen. There are only 3 more bosses in this area, and it begins with the big O and S. And to be fair, this fight did catch me off guard on the first attempt, where Ornstein's nimbleness caught me off guard as he managed to dodge my Fire Whip and box me into a corner where Smo smashed me. Second attempt, and I tried the exact same thing to no effect. So clearly the Fire Whip isn't it for this fight. Okay, time to switch tactics. Using Great Fireball for Phase 1, and Phase 2 is a complete joke with a leveled pyromancy build. Great Combustion easily stunlocks Smo to death. When meeting the Princess Guinevere, I see through her amazing chest ahead and proceed to burn down this catfish and go to incinerate the Dark Sun, who may as well not even exist in this game. 1 Power Within Fire Whip and his illusionary ashes are spread throughout Lordran until Dark Souls 3, where Aldrich eats him. A quick stat check at this point, and I have 45 dexterity, which means all forms of scaling for my pyromancy are maxed out, and there isn't anything left to do besides bum rush these bosses and collect the rest of the pyromancy spells along the way. Starting with the max devotion reward for the Chaos Servants, Chaos Storm is a stronger version of the Firestorm spell that I already have, and I also grabbed Toxic Mist as well, but spoiler alert, I'm probably never going to use it. If you happen to be enjoying this video, why not like and leave a comment? I'm pretty sure that it does something to help the video in the YouTube algorithm, so thanks in advance. The first Lord Soul I'm going after is Seath the Scaleless. There isn't any reason I went this way, as there's almost nothing that increases the strength of my build, so any of the 4 directions would work, except for the Bed of Chaos. And to address the comments now, I could murder Quailana to obtain Fire Tempest, but I don't want to do that, so I'm gonna head to Seath's Archives. I grabbed the broken pendant from the Crystal Golem in the archives, so I can now access the DLC. Nice. I do have to ask, why are there so many enemies in the archives? And why do they have such a large aggro range? Like, it actually feels like I'm playing Dark Souls 2 with all the hidden archers ganking me off screen. Whatever, it doesn't matter, let's just skip to the boss fight. Oh, and I do get the symbol of avarice from a mimic inside the archives. Not that the extra souls are useful. In this fight, I completely underestimated the strength of Fire Surge. Like, how is this broken spell not found earlier? Without the red Tearstone ring and only power within, I one-shot Seath. It took less than 10 seconds to do so. It makes me wonder if you can one-shot Manus with this spell. Then, for some reason, I went to the Tomb of the Giants. This was a mistake. I do fight Paladin Leroy to get the Sanctus Shield for maybe some hyper mode shenanigans a bit later on in the run. Nito absolutely cooks me. So far, he is the most difficult boss because he won't move towards me. He just stands at the back of the arena, hitting me with his sword stab attack that I can't see while his skeletons gank me to death. Now, I'm not going to show you all the attempts it took, just the winning attempt, but needless to say, it took forever, and I won by just getting lucky with Chaos Storm. Time for the start of the DLC, and the first boss is the Sanctuary Guardian. Not tough. The massive amount of damage I can dish out with my pyromancy spells is kind of insane. 1,000 damage average is enough to where you don't really need many openings to defeat a boss. My favourite boss in Dark Souls 1, and I spent more time running back to the boss arena after dying than I did fighting him. I suppose the most notable thing is that the Great Fireball can knock Artorias out of his buffing animation if you get the attack off early enough. And the only reason I died to this boss is because I kept getting greedy, nothing else. Pyromancy is truly broken. And with Artorias dead, Phase 4 can commence, where everything is unlocked and the world is now my oyster. With the final areas of the game unlocked, I head into Ulasil Township, where I have to grab 2 items. The first is the Crest Key, which unlocks the Calamite boss fight. Easy enough. Then I of course spent 10 minutes trying to get through the area with 3 melee corrupted guys, and I don't know what they're called, and the 2 sorcerers. I need to take it much slower than usual. After getting through them, the Abyss is officially unlocked, and I cleared through the entire area, grabbing some humanity along the way. I rescue Sif because I'm not a monster, and obtain my prize, the Black Flame. And this combustion-like spell kind of sucks. Alright, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here. So, what makes spells like Darkbead and Pursuers so OP and cool is that they do an element of physical damage. This physical damage scales with your catalyst's melee scaling, so you can get massive damage using something like the Manus Catalyst for those spells. Well, Black Flame is the same in concept, but the Pyromancy Flame doesn't have any melee scaling. So the spell does less fire damage than Great Combustion and has fixed physical damage, and the only reason why you would need this in a Pyromancy only run is to clear the Ceaseless Discharge, which I do in 5 attacks. And right after that is the Demon Fire Sage, which, as his name doesn't suggest, is not immune to fire damage, which means I don't need to mess around with the Black Flame. I managed to get the Demon Fire Sage stuck in his butt slam loop, so I could just circle around him and fire whip his booty. With Black Flame, I thought to give the Centipede Demon a try, and I'm just going to say this now so you don't get your hopes up, it's not possible. Not even if you had the red Tearstone ring, the Sorcery ring, and the Dust Crown ring would this be possible. The math is simple. It has over 3000 HP. With Power Within and the Dragon Crest ring, we deal 100 damage flat. With 12 casts, that's 1200 damage. If I could use RTSR, that's 150 damage. which would be just under half of the Centipede Demon's health. And maybe there's some kind of counter damage I don't know about, but the highest damage numbers without a thrusting weapon is 40%, and that still only gets me about 60% of the way through the fight. So I skip the boss. Next time, baby. Lastly, in the Izalith Gauntlet is the Bed of Chaos. And as usual, it's a disappointingly frustrating fight. We go to the right, break the orb, quit out. Then go to the left, break the orb, quit out. Then go to the center and kill the bug in one hit. Easy done, moving on. In Izalith, I grabbed the Chaos Fire Whip spell. It's basically the same as regular Fire Whip, and from my teacher, I also grabbed Fire Tempest, the strongest spell in the game, and I'm not even going to use it. I'll save that for the one-shot challenge. During the Manus, Father of the Abyss boss fight, I do die a couple of times, once from just getting absolutely smoked by his dark magic, and another from healing at the wrong time instead of dodging his dark magic. And it's kind of strange. After I die a couple of times, I lock in and I absolutely destroy him. After locking in, it's a pretty easy first try, and I will say Black Flame almost gets me killed. See, unlike Great Combustion, this attack does a ton of poise damage, and it's so much damage that it can stagger Manus out of a safe attack window and straight into another attack. But, once I realized this, I swapped to Great Fireball and Great Combustion and won the fight. And I'm still wondering, why doesn't Manus ever use his other more difficult to avoid dark magic attacks for me, instead of just the easy to avoid overhead magic? It doesn't really matter, because victory is still mine. Lucky last in the DLC is Calamy, and this was super easy. All his hurt boxes just cooperated and didn't screw me over. And bonus points, I managed to kill him with Fire Tempest. So I lied. I did use it. I didn't kill him from full HP with Fire Tempest, but it's still cool to get use out of it. Only 3 bosses remain, and the first one is Great Grey Wolf Sif. And I hate you, FromSoft, for making me kill this giant adorable doggo. And as a quick tangent, a quick letter to FromSoft, why didn't you change it so if you did the DLC first, she could just give you the Covenant of Artorias? And second, you were keenly aware of your story having time travel, and you made Sif recognize the player in a bonus cutscene. So why didn't you just make the previously aforementioned change? Fuck you, I'm not even going to show this fight. The 4 kings should not have taken as long as they did. It was like 20 minutes of attempt before I got the winning run, and I'm just going to skip there. So, as long as you dodge to the right side of the kings, and you make sure to stay up close and personal, they can't really hurt you. And you can burst them down with the massive damage of pyromancy, before they can really do any of their more deadly attacks. These attacks including the magic attacks or the grab attacks. And it's really that easy. Now, I don't want to lie to you guys, especially if you made it this far in the video, so I'm going to be real with you. I'd been playing this run for about 4 hours by this point, and I think it was around midnight. And I struggled with Gwyn. Yeah, there you go, I said it. You can all make fun of me in the comments. Literally, all I had to do was parry him and stunlock him with Great Combustions, and yet somehow I spent 50 minutes dying to this burned asshole. Yeah, this was frustrating, but in the end, I get unlimited attempts and he only gets 1. This was a ton of fun, and while it wasn't my first time messing around with pyromancy in Dark Souls, usually I'm a melee player, Seeing the massive damage numbers using simple spells like Great Combustion and Fireball was awesome. Anyway, if you made it this far in the video, you obviously enjoyed it, so why not hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Don't miss out on the next video. Peace out, gamers.